Hi, everybody. Welcome to Day 2 Live. So today on Day 2, it is about natural presence. So hopefully by now you'll watch the teaching video from Tabitha Jane, the creator and author of The Nature Process, and also the short film made by me, focused on the topic of the nature process. And in the video from me, I mentioned an approach called the multiple sensory approach. So what it is instead of engaging one sense at a time from the list today, you could engage as many senses as you could at a certain location. What this approach does is that, from my experience, is it can bring you to a state of present a lot quicker than you engaging one sense at a time. And again, please go ahead and practice and see whether it is the experience for you as well. And I want to mention this to Nicolette, that you got the book, The Nature Process. Tabitha Jane she did not include the multiple sensory approach in the Nature Process book, because when the time she wrote the second edition, she hasn't got the research about the multiple sensory approach. It was when she did the third book, Nature Embodied, and then she came across this research about multiple sensory approach. So she talked more about that approach in that book. So I want to let you know that, so when you go and practice with the other senses, that's outside the scope of today's exercise, because you want to dive deeper, and then you won't feel, okay, how come Tabitha hasn't mentioned the multiple sensory approach in her book? It is in another book called Nature Embodied. And the third point I want to touch upon is that it is quite normal for any human beings, really, to get distracted if you are practicing the multiple sensory approach or engaging with one sense at a time in nature. Try to get present. Your mind will be filled with work, your errands, what's going on in your family, excuse me, all sorts of things. And it's important that you acknowledge that and don't judge yourself for getting distracted, so that you just keep practicing, okay? And one last thing I want to mention is that as busy working parents, one or maybe the most biggest challenge is that we feel we don't have enough time, right? And if you live in the city or in an area where you don't have a lot of green areas, you may feel, how can I then incorporate nature or the nature process more into my daily life to improve my well-being and reduce stress levels? The simple answer is that when you walk around in the neighborhood, for example, when there's not a lot of green space, just really pay attention, right? So you can pay attention to the sky, for example, the cloud, the wind. There maybe aren't a lot of trees, but if you can find any, hey, just really tap into the sensory experiences, right? And also at home, you can pay attention as well. People might say, oh, my home is not nature, right? But it is still part of the earth. So you can really just simply pay attention, right? It is really cultivating that habit of noticing things. You may feel, okay, I've been living in my home for a long time. I'm familiar with things, but try notice something that you haven't noticed before. What's jumping out to your attention, right? And you can try new approaches, for example, buying new pot plants or listening to audio, nature sound, so that it brings new experiences for you when you engage with your senses. I think that's all I want to talk about today, because I haven't got any questions. But if you have got questions and you want me to answer them tomorrow, please leave in the Sutra space, and I'll definitely talk about it in tomorrow's live. Okay, then I'll see you tomorrow.